Hi, I'm Jaclyn.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
We hope you guys are all doing okay in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic. I realize all of our openings the last 4 weeks have been about this, but that's really all that's going on in our lives right now. So unfortunately, we don't have a lot to kind of update on.
Yeah, we can't go outside, can't hang out with friends, so we've just been watching a lot of streaming services and
Yep.
working, I guess. I don't know. Nothing special.
Courtney and our other best friend Tiffany and I have been doing virtual workouts, so that's been fun. So we've been having a group FaceTime while we all do the same workout video. So that's been really good. I really appreciate that, and it's been good to kind of get some physical exercise and get to see my friends' faces, even though we can't physically be together. But it's good to kind of have that sense of friendship and community in these difficult times where we're all struggling a bit with social isolation.
Yeah, my downstairs neighbor probably hates me because I keep jumping during the dance song, but she also yells at her boyfriend at 11 p.m., so she can't be too mad.
Yes. I think she'll get over it.
I mean, in other news, there's a hornet building a nest outside my front door. Guys, this is literally what we've come to. Kevin and I sat on the patio the other day and just watched this squirrel for 5 minutes because it was a little chubby thing on this little tiny stem, and I was like, how are you not falling?
Have you seen on Facebook someone made a squirrel feeder that's a little picnic table?
No.
Have you seen that? It's adorable. I'll have to send you a picture. I really want to make one. It's just this mini wooden picnic table that they've nailed to a tree, so it's something for the squirrels to rest on, but it looks like they're having a little picnic, and it's so cute. I also have been very invested in the squirrels here. My home office window looks right at the street, and there's my little porch swing, which I love, and there's a tree, so I like watching the swing move in the wind. I don't know, it's
we're quarantined, y'all. We're bored.
It's a relaxing, anyway. So in the tree, there's these two squirrels, and I always see them every day, and they're chasing each other, and they're running after each other. And so I sent out a Snapchat that I needed to name the squirrels. So my 3- and 6-year-old nieces have named them Piglet and Cheeseball. So that's where I'm at in my life right now.
Yeah, and then Jaclyn sent a snap being like, oh, look at Piglet and Cheeseball. And she was like, Look at them playing. And in the video, I did not see any squirrels. And I was like, oh no. I was like, Jaclyn has gone crazy.
Courtney's she is imagining these squirrels.
And I saw them.
And then I was sitting out on my beloved porch swing, and, I'm watching the squirrels, and I'm like, oh, they ran down to the bottom of the tree. Let me lean over and see what they're doing. And I fell off my swing.
And there's nothing that disappoints me more than the fact that I did not get to see that.
Yes, and I live on a fairly busy street, both cars and pedestrians, so I'm sure someone saw it, and maybe that made their day of quarantine, and I can live with that.
So yeah, this has been our lives. Yeah, just a lot of Kevin, a lot of cats, a lot of outdoor wilderness. That's about my life right now.
Yeah, so I've been working remotely. This was week 3. Andrew just started working remotely this week, and he has made homemade banana bread, and he's working on his second loaf of regular homemade bread. Yesterday, he ground up some coffee beans to make some cold brew that's supposed to sit overnight. I didn't touch that this morning. I'm gonna let him deal with that because it's in the French press, and he's like, if you feel like you're gonna break it, don't use it. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna let you handle that. So Andrew is loving the quarantine life. It's going well for him.
I swear, I've seen everyone making banana bread, and then I saw this thing going around. It was like, what the heck about the quarantine is making everyone make banana bread? Because literally, every person I know has made banana bread.
Well, we had a bunch of bananas that went bad, so that's pretty much the only time we make banana bread. It's never an intentional. It's oh crap, I got some bananas, and let me do something with them.
I mean, it looks good. I've seen chocolate banana bread.
Yes.
I've seen regular banana bread. I've seen blueberry banana bread. I mean, if y'all want to send me a piece with no nuts, because I'm allergic to nuts, send me a piece. I'll try them.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be delightful. All right, so today we are covering a special request by the aforementioned Tiffany. So today we are doing the murders of Tupac and Notorious B.I.G., aka Biggie.
Yes, we are.
So we used a lot of sources for this episode. Courtney and I kind of went into a bigger deep dive than we thought we would for this case. So
There was a lot more than I
Yes.
thought there
So we
was.
used a couple of articles from history.com, biography.com, britannica.com, a couple of articles from the LA Times and Rolling Stones, slate.com, as well as blackpast.com. And we also watched a couple of documentaries called Murder Rap Inside the Biggie and Tupac Murders and Biggie Life of Notorious B.I.G. and Tupac Resurrection, which was actually produced by his mom. Fun fact. So, Tupac Shakur was born Lassane Parish Crooks on June 16th, 1971, in New York City. His mom was originally named Alice Fane Williams and later changed her name to Afeni Shakur. She was a member of the Black Panther Party and she was super involved in the movement. She was pretty high ranking with them. And at the time, most of America was seeing the Black Panthers as a threat, and the FBI started really cracking down on them. They came to her house, held a gun to her head, and took her to prison. And at the time, she was facing 300 years in prison. She was pregnant and she worked as her own attorney, and she beat the charges and was released. So after she was released, she gave birth to Lassane at the time, and when he was a year old, she changed his name to Tupac Amari Shakur after the Inca chief in South Africa named Tupac Amari, which translates to intelligent warrior. And Shakur was the last name of his sister's father, so that's where his full name came from. So Tupac didn't really grow up knowing his father. His name was William Garland, and he was also a member of the Black Panthers. He had a stepfather. He wasn't really around a lot. He was mostly raised by his mother. He grew up in extreme poverty in New York, and his first gig was with Jesse Jackson in New York when he was a kid, while Jackson was running for president. And he performed at the Apollo Theater, and he was like, this is it, this is what I want to do. Like, he was hooked on music and performing. So his mom lost her job and they moved to Baltimore, where he went to the Baltimore School for the Arts, which was a pretty affluent school in the area. So he didn't really feel like he fit in with the kids in his school and the kids in his neighborhood. And actually, at the Baltimore School for the Arts, he became friends with Jada Pinkett. So that was super interesting that Courtney and I did not know. And they would remain friends throughout the rest of his life. So when he was in school there, he was really into Shakespeare and the other classics. And he, like I said before, he didn't really fit in with the kids in his neighborhood. And so he realized that the education he was getting there was a lot different than the education that the friends that lived in his neighborhood were getting. So that kind of sets up the pretense, I guess, for where a lot of his lyrics would come from later. So they eventually moved to Marin City, California to try to escape the violence of Baltimore. But Marin City was also a pretty low income area, a lot of poverty. And even in high school, he was talking about how there should be classes about poverty, why people are hungry, police brutality, actual sex education. Like, he was really invested in these types of issues from a young age.
Yeah, he was only like 17 and he was like, we need to be teaching kids like real life and not just like X times Y equals Z and stuff like that.
And especially in the less fortunate areas that he comes from, he was really opened up to that kind of lifestyle and was really invested in making a better community for these kids. So he dropped out of high school and he sold drugs for a while, but apparently he wasn't very good at it. He, in his words, hung out with the drug dealers and the pimps. And he said that the drug dealers looked out for him when he started writing music, and so he started just taking, some odd jobs for money. So ultimately, Shock G was the one who made his career. So Tupac rapped for him, and he was like, yeah, like, you're really good. I think you have what it takes. So Tupac was a roadie for him. He says it wasn't a very glamorous lifestyle, but he met a lot of people, and he got to do a song with him. And he said that these were just, like, the best times of his life. Like, he really looked back fondly on that time. So Tupac became a part of Digital Underground in 1990, and he released his first album, Tupacalypse Now, in 1991, which ultimately just sparked, like, a political firestorm. So again, a lot of his lyrics were about violence towards police, about the issues that his community was facing. He really wanted to rap about things that affected him and his community. And so he thought that if he was able to show the real violence in his lyrics, that it would be able to bring awareness to what was going on around him. And so Tupac actually said that he was inspired by Don McLean and Shakespeare. So
I thought that was very interesting.
yes, very interesting. After Tupac released his first album, he was walking across the street and he was stopped by police and asked for ID. So they charged him with jaywalking, and he's basically like, why would you charge me with such a petty crime? Like, are you serious right now? So he's like, okay, whatever, just give me my citation so I can go on about my day. And the next thing he knew, his face was being shoved into the concrete. So he ended up going to jail for resisting arrest. And at the time that his first video was premiering on MTV, he was in jail and being beat by the police, which is pretty ironic considering what all of his lyrics were about in his first album.
Yeah, it's like, are the police wanting to make his, like, are they wanting to be like, yeah, everything he's rapping about's true, here's an example.
Like, yeah, like, you just gave him a great, like, publicity, like, okay, I don't know. So he ended up suing that police department, and they settled for $42,000. So clearly someone somewhere decided they were in the wrong. And in October of 1993, Tupac was arrested for shooting 2 off-duty police officers in Atlanta who were harassing a black man. But later those charges were dropped because the police officers were intoxicated and threatening those around him. So that didn't go anywhere. So Tupac started a group called Thug Life, which was considered to be like a new Black Power movement, and he said that Thug Life stood for the hate you give little infants, fuck everyone. So Thug Life released their only album titled Thug Life Volume 1 in 1994, and he said that thug to him really just meant like an underdog and someone who was able to rise up and overcome the obstacles that were presented to him. So it was really like a powerful thing to him to consider himself a thug. So at this time, the media and politicians are just like destroying him and saying that he's like causing all of these issues and this isn't really a problem, that he is just like trying to stir the pot, and he's basically responding saying that he didn't create Thug Life, he just diagnosed it, that he's not causing this issue, he's bringing awareness to it, which is funny because we have the same issues today where people say that people are playing the race card and people are, you know, bringing up these problems that don't exist anymore, which I'm sorry is frankly bullshit. So
yeah, and I see people say like, well, when I grew up there was no racism, but it's like, I mean, this is the early 90s. Clearly there was like this racism is not a new thing. Like it's been around.
It has always been around, guys. It didn't go anywhere just because some places changed laws, and keep in mind some places still have not changed laws, but that does not mean that this issue has gone away or will probably ever go away, unfortunately, because there are still so many people that claim that it doesn't even exist, which is tragic. So Tupac ended up being arrested a total of 12 times. Some of the cases were dropped, but not all of them. He ended up doing a couple of films like Juice and Poetic Justice, and so he started to feel like his ego was getting in the way and he just wasn't being very professional, and he really just wanted to like become humble again. So even when he's like out doing these like major movies with people like Janet Jackson, he's still going to like house parties in his community and like being around the people that he's grown up with and had this relationship with, because he just wanted to kind of be like real and authentic. So in 1993, Tupac is at a party in LA, and Notorious B.I.G, aka Biggie, is there, and he asks some of his friends to introduce him to Tupac. So they actually became really good friends. Tupac was in California, Biggie was in New York, and they would visit each other whenever they were visiting like the opposite coast and stayed at each other's houses. And they actually freestyled together at the 1993 Budweiser Superfest in Madison Square Garden in New York City. And Biggie eventually asked Tupac if he would be his manager. He's like, because you're really good, like, can I be underneath you? Can we work together? But Tupac's like, no. He's like, I don't really want to mix business with friendship. Like, we're friends. I just kind of want to leave it at that.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about Biggie. So he was born Christopher Wallace on May 21st, 1972 in Brooklyn. His parents were from Jamaica. His dad did leave when he was 2, but his mom, Violetta, worked multiple jobs to send him to private school and get herself an education. She didn't want him to go to public schools because she saw what was around Brooklyn and knew it was really unsafe. Their neighborhood, it was just full of, like, violence and drugs, which a lot of Brooklyn was. They talked in the documentary that, like, these federal agents went into, like, around the neighborhood that he lived in, trying to see if, like, how easy it was to get crack, and they found it within 10 minutes. Like, it was that easy. But Chris was always artistic. He's always writing songs. Like, his friend had a turntable, and they would just, like, play around with it, and he just liked hearing himself over some beats, which is always pretty cool. So there was a jazz player down the street who ended up giving him some, like, good advice on, like, how to make songs flow. So, and you can hear that in a lot of his music, just the flow of it and, like, how he approaches all his music. It has a little bit of, like, a jazz style to it, but with rap. I don't know. It's very interesting.
That makes sense.
So he was a little different from Tupac. He started selling drugs when he was 13, and apparently he was amazing at it. So,
well,
yeah, they said that he didn't even have to go and look for people. Like, people would be like, where is he? Like, they would come to him. He would just sit on a corner and everyone would come to him. But he didn't, like, boast about it or talk about it because he didn't want his mom to know. And I thought this was a really funny story that she talked about in the documentary. She said she was cleaning his room and she found this plate with these, like, hard mashed potatoes on it. And she's like, why? Like, why does he have these mashed potatoes? That's disgusting.
Clean your room.
So she throws it all away, and he comes home, and he's like, did you clean my room? She was like, yeah, you had these nasty mashed potatoes. I threw them away. Well, it was not mashed potatoes. It was drugs. But she actually didn't even know it was drugs until after he died.
Wow.
Yeah, and she, in the documentary, she was like, and let me tell you what, if he wasn't dead, I would have killed him for selling drugs. But I just thought that was a funny story.
That is funny.
So yeah, he ended up getting the name Big due to his size. They'd also call him, like, Fat Chris, and it eventually just kind of became Biggie. But he was a joking guy, and he thought it was hilarious. He was like, yeah, it's me, I'm Biggie. So yeah, and he also would rap on the street as a teenager, like in the neighborhood. He would just, like, freestyle. So they would just kind of take a trash can and make a beat, and he would just start freestyle rapping right in the middle of the street, and people would just come from all over to hear it or to challenge him or whatever. And there was a video, and he was pretty good. So he had, like, a longtime girlfriend, Jan, and he did end up getting her pregnant. So I think he was probably around 16, 17 at this time. And so his daughter, Tiana, was born, and he absolutely loved her. He loved being a father. He wanted to spoil her, and he wanted her to have, like, a better life than he did. He didn't want, you know, for her to have to hustle or live on these streets. He wanted her to just be a princess and not have to worry about anything. So he eventually did come to the attention of Sean Combs, who you might know as Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Puffy, Diddy. He has a lot of names.
Got a few names.
They generally, in the documentary, call him, like, Puff. So I think that's the name. I might call him that. I might call him Sean Combs. Depends on how I'm feeling. It's the same person. I will generally refer to Chris as Biggie from now on, because that's really what everyone called him.
Yeah.
So he did come to the attention of Puff, and he arranged for a record deal. And so Puff had started his own record label called Bad Boy Records, and he had Biggie join him. So he was also called Biggie Smalls, but that was from a movie, and so he was getting some, like, lawsuit going on for, like, using that name, and so he decided to go with Notorious B.I.G. as his, like, official to the public artist name. But everyone still called him Biggie. So But Biggie always talked about how Puff really saved his life. He gave him like a new opportunity outside of drugs. He was able to get off the street and provide for his family. And he really viewed them as brothers. And he also said, like, right after he signed like the deal with Puff, that the next night cops came in and raided where he was staying and selling drugs. So it was literally like, if he hadn't gotten out, he would likely be in jail.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so people really loved Biggie's music, especially because he had been a guy on the streets. So that's what he was rapping about, and people could really relate to him and his music. They don't talk much, but I guess him and Jan broke up because he started seeing Faith Evans. She'd also signed with Puff, and they got married like super quick. But
Can I just say, when I was reading your notes, for some reason I read that as Faith Hill, and I was like, hold up. What did I miss in pop culture?
Can we imagine Biggie and Faith Hill married? I can't.
I'm pretty sure we need to create a remix of some music here, and Patreon exclusive, guys. We'll get that going for you.
Oh my gosh, that would be hilarious. Like Biggie rapping and then the chorus, any Faith Hill song would just sound completely weird. Yeah, so Faith Evans, they got married like super quick. But Biggie wasn't exactly faithful. There was even a story, she said, how he would call when he got into each state when he was touring, and she was like, I knew something was off, and I don't know if she drove or she flew to wherever he was staying.
Oh my gosh.
Knocked on the door, and a woman answered and just beat her up. And then was like, and Biggie was like, I didn't have sex with her. And she was like, well, you should have, because I just beat her up, and left. But
I mean, you know,
you
do what
gotta,
you gotta do, like.
But she was really like, she said he would like come back and be loving, and that she almost felt like they were closer because of it. Like she was, you know, his girl, like all that. They had a weird relationship, but it worked. They did stay together. They stayed married until his death, and they did have one son together. He goes by CJ. So in the documentary, it said it's like Christopher Jordan Wallace, but a lot online says Christopher Wallace Jr. Don't know if like he changed that or what, but CJ is what he goes by. He became friends with Tupac. And in the documentary, they said that like Tupac loved Biggie's first song, Party and Bullshit. And so they really kind of bonded over a mutual respect for each other and their music. He said Tupac was hilarious, that he was always making him laugh, and like most people didn't really see that side of Tupac, but that he was just so funny. And Tupac taught him a lot. You know, they'd bonded over the fact that neither had fathers. They were both up-and-coming artists. They both had like the street and book intelligence. So they just really bonded. And Biggie really brought music back to New York. So there was like Dre, Snoop, and Tupac, and they're all on the West Coast. And so Biggie really brought big music back to the East. He started the group Junior Mafia, and so Mafia stood for Masters at Finding Intelligent Attitudes. And he did become a mentor to Lil' Kim.
Oh.
She was a part of it.
Interesting.
And he did eventually have an affair with her.
Oh.
So Biggie and Tupac did, as we all know, end up having a pretty big feud. Pretty big West Coast versus East Coast feud. And that really began when Tupac was shot in New York.
Yes, so on November 30th, 1994, Tupac was in a building in Manhattan recording his third album, which was Me Against the World, which, fun fact, Tupac reported that to be his favorite album. But he was there that day, and he was recording it. So as he was leaving in the lobby, two men came in and shot him, and he was actually shot 5 times, including twice in the head. And so Tupac blamed Puff and Biggie and thought that they, you know, kind of set him up over this whole East Coast, West Coast beef going on.
Yeah, and they, of course, talked about this in the documentary, and it's a little different, and this is probably a lot of he said, she said kind of stuff, because in the documentary, it was Lil C's, he's a part of Junior Mafia. They were upstairs, like, where they record, where they hang out, and he saw Tupac outside and was like, hey, come on up and party. And he told Biggie, like, hey, Biggie, like, Tupac's downstairs, and Biggie's like, yeah, bring him up. So Lil C's and Nino take the elevator down, and they hear gunshots, and they said that a man with a gun told them to stay in the elevator, so they did, and they went back upstairs and told Biggie, this is what happened, and so Biggie went downstairs, they called the cops, and they said while he was leaving, like, Tupac was, like, flipping him off, because Tupac really believed they knew he was going to be ambushed and robbed, and like told him to come in so that could happen. And 2 months later, Biggie did release a song called Who Shot Ya? And so Tupac really believed it was Biggie taunting him. So this, really with Tupac being shot, it really started this whole Tupac Biggie war. And so Biggie's relationship with his wife Faith was really in a rocky spot. So she was in LA, and Tupac was like, hey, will you come, do a song? Will you be on a song with me? And she was like, okay, she was really, according to her statement in the documentary, she was like, I was just seeing like a paycheck. If I go do this song with Tupac, I'm gonna make like $30,000. Like, of course I'm gonna do it. So then Tupac kind of started making hints in the media at them having a relationship. And so later he releases a single insulting Biggie and claiming to have slept with his wife. Evans did later say Tupac did hit on her, but they didn't have any sexual relations, nothing like that. It was just business. And his fellow rappers in the Junior Mafia were like, let's release a response. Like, look, we got, we'll get together, we'll do this. Even Jay-Z was on the documentary being like, I was ready to do it. Like, I would, let's go. So Biggie said, no, do not release anything. If anyone does, you are no longer associated with me. I don't want to take that energy out there. And he kind of really wanted to just resolve this whole thing. He was talking about how powerful him and Tupac were. The whole feud really started over him, and Tupac. But here, this feud started a whole East Coast versus West Coast. Like, everyone hated each other.
It brought in so many more people than just the two of them. Like, it just became this whole thing.
Yeah, they were saying, like, even if Biggie went on the West Coast, like, he was not safe. Like, so doing tour, he would get booed just because he was, like, an East Coast person. And he really wanted to change it and see peace, but it didn't really seem like it ever got there, so.
Yep. So after Tupac is shot, he does check himself out of the hospital against doctor's orders. And at the time, he was actually on trial for 3 counts of sexual assault for girls that had worked on one of his music videos before. So I believe the day after he checked himself out of the hospital, he like wheels himself into the courtroom where he's found guilty on 3 counts of sexual abuse. So he's sentenced to 1.5 to 4.5 years in maximum security prison. And at this time, Suge Knight with Death Row Records comes to him and he's like, hey, if you sign this deal with me, I'll finance your appeal. And so...
kind of hard to resist that.
Yeah, so Tupac's like, okay, and so he signed it, and so after he was in jail for 11 months, he was released on bail, and he went with this new record company because he did believe that the people that he was in business with before had set this up against him. So he's like, yeah, I'm going to go with Death Row Records now. So he's now with Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre. And again, like Courtney said, this really just kind of, put fire to the whole East Coast, West Coast battle. So Tupac actually put it in a couple of his videos that he, felt something was going to happen to him. And he, thought that he was going to die young, and so he wanted to put out a lot of songs so that there was music that would live on after his death. So it's kind of eerie that he, had these thoughts before his death.
Yeah, and in the documentary, it showed video of Biggie thinking the same thing. Biggie was like, I'm gonna die, I just know it. And it is super crazy that they had this, intuition that they knew something was gonna happen to them young.
Yeah. So on September 7th, 1996, Tupac was in Las Vegas to see a Mike Tyson fight because they were really good friends. And earlier that same night, him and his crew were seen beating up a member of the Crips gang in the lobby of the MGM Hotel. So I guess they, had some beef with him earlier, and so this guy approached him, and they basically, beat him up in the lobby. And later that night, Tupac is riding in the passenger seat of a car with a bunch of other people, and he's sitting at a red light, and a white Cadillac pulls up beside him at a stoplight on Flamingo Road in Las Vegas and just opens fire. So at least 12 shots were fired, and those who were inside the car with Tupac did fire back. And so Tupac was rushed to the hospital, and the ER was able to, revive him, and they really thought that he was going to recover. He had his right lung removed. He ended up having multiple surgeries, but he did die from his wounds on September 13th, 1996. So no one has ever been arrested for the death of Tupac. So there are a lot of theories out there. People very strongly believe in one of these theories. So the first theory is that Suge Knight of Death Row Records, who was the driver of the car that night, arranged the killing of Tupac so that basically he would make all the money off of his music. Because again, Tupac had made a lot of music that would end up being released after his death. So Suge Knight's like, well, I mean, I'm the manager of this music now, so if he's not getting this money, I get all the money.
And they did say that Tupac and him were fighting before Tupac's death, that Tupac was just kind of over it, and that Suge Knight really was like he kind of treated the record label almost like a mafia. Like, he was so, strongly controlling everyone, and Tupac didn't really like it, and he thought about leaving the record. And so, it could be that he was like, well, if you're going to leave, pretty extreme, but...
Yeah. So that's one theory. Another goes back to the fight that he got into earlier in the lobby with a member of the Southside Compton Crips. And so this theory states that a man named Orlando Anderson was the one who actually shot Tupac that night. So later, his uncle, who goes by Keefy D, who said he was in the car with him that night, he releases a statement, and he refuses to, go to police officially, but he does release a statement in a documentary and his book that he writes, saying that he was riding in the car that night, that they pulled up, that they kind of were, passing the gun around to see, who had the best shot, and that Orlando was the one who ultimately took it and shot him, but that overall it was a gang retaliation against Tupac and his crew assaulting a member of their crew. And so... Other people also say that Biggie is the one who set it up, so that, yes, this is what happened, that Orlando and the Crips were the ones that actually shot Tupac, but that Biggie's the one that gave them the gun and paid them $1 million to do so.
Which seems like a small price for someone's life, but... Yeah, also, because with this, I was watching the Biggie documentary, and I was like, Biggie really did seem like a genuinely good person, to his core, even if, people in the media were saying other things, and I was like, I just can't believe that he would do that, because he did have so much respect for Tupac, and, wanted to, resolve everything, and there is no firm evidence or proof that Biggie paid any money. He could have. I mean, I don't know. Nobody knows. Yep. But that is just a theory that was going around, or maybe something somebody said, but there is no hard evidence on that part.
Yep. And so other people believe that Tupac actually faked his own death. So like Courtney said, he, was having issues with the label and, was just feeling a lot of those pressures, and maybe just the general pressures of being so famous and having so much writing on him. And so basically some people think that he faked his own death so that he could run away and just not live that kind of life anymore. So there's actually a man in New Mexico who claims that Tupac is still alive, and he's making a movie about it. And at one point, Tupac's bodyguards said that he helped cover it up and smuggle him into Cuba. And Suge Knight's own son said that he was alive. Some people say that they've seen him in South Africa. So again, just a lot of wild theories out there. We're just presenting all the information that's available, so that's what some people say. So as far as the police investigation into Tupac's death, so this is a little bit interesting as well. So again, most people believe the theory that it was Orlando Anderson and the Southside Compton Crips. And so police interviewed Orlando once, and that was it. And they said that, nope, there's not enough there to suspect him at all, and so they never looked into him again.
And they do say that Suge Knight did have a lot of LAPD officers on his payroll.
Yep.
So he was kind of funding them, and so maybe if somehow Suge Knight was also involved, with the Crips and everything happening, that he could just easily make it go away, or make the whole thing go away, because he's like, the mysterious unsolved murder might sell more than... oh, this person did it, clear-cut answer.
Yes.
All theories, so.
Yep, so again, no arrest was ever made, but that is the life and death of Tupac.
Yeah, and so after Tupac was killed, Biggie really did want to end the whole East Coast, West Coast beef. He's like, this isn't worth, losing lives over. This has gone too far. So, just really wasn't worth losing lives over. However, Biggie was murdered in the early hours of March 9th, 1997. This happened shortly after he left a party in LA. So him and Puff and all them were driving. Puff was in the car ahead of them. So they had just gone through the red light, but Biggie's SUV did get stuck at it. So while they're waiting at the red light, a car pulls up and just opens fire. He was rushed to the ER, but it was too late. And he did release, had been working on an album before he died, and it was released after, and it's eerily called Life After Death.
Wow. Which
is spooky. So Biggie's death really did officially end the whole East Coast, West Coast beef, because he did die only 6 months after Tupac. And so they realized it just gone too far. There's deaths of, two of the greatest rappers to ever live. And so Biggie's murder also is still unsolved. So some theories are that it was Suge Knight as payback for Tupac, that he was like, you killed my artist, I'm going to kill you, because there is the whole theory that, Biggie paid for Tupac's death. They do believe it could be the Crips gang again. And some people believe that the LAPD had something to do with it, some hand in it, and they're covering it up. They didn't really investigate much and just kind of closed the case. And so in 2006, it was reopened. And so they did start talking to Keefe D again. And when he was interviewed about Biggie, he was like, that one wasn't us. And they're like, that one? So does that mean you're responsible for Tupac's? Yeah. What's happening here? But as far as it goes, there's really no other information. I know Faith was talking on the documentary. She thinks the LAPD does know something, that they're just not, they're just covering it up. And, who knows? There's other theories too, maybe the Crips did do it, and he's just said that to kind of throw him off the trail. Maybe Suge Knight paid the Crips to say Biggie did it, to kind of fuel the flame, sell more records. Suge did have those LAPD officers on his payroll. So even if he did do it or paid someone to do it, he could be like, make it go away. But yeah, it's completely unsolved. A film was made in 2009 called Notorious that was released about Biggie, and there's been a lot of documentaries on Tupac and Biggie and together, all of it.
And the LA Times article that I read did talk about the LAPD as well, and why was there no further investigation into this? Why did you interview the major suspect once and never again? And, what information do you have that you're not releasing? So that was a pretty good article that did talk about that a little bit. But yeah, both cases still officially unsolved, but just, overall just so tragic. Just the death of two young black men who were so successful and such great artists, and just tragic for everyone involved.
All right, Jaclyn, speculation time. Who do you think killed Tupac? Who do you think killed Biggie?
I'm probably going to have to go with probably the most thought out theory for Tupac, that it was Orlando and the Crips. I think that just makes the most sense, because we do know that gang violence is so prevalent. We do know that, Tupac did beat up a member of the Crips the night he was killed. We do have a statement from someone who was in the Crips who said that it happened. I don't think Biggie paid off the Crips. I think it was just straight gang violence retaliation. As far as Biggie, I don't know, man.
I agree with you on the Tupac one. I do think it was Orlando and the Crips. What's that saying where it's the easiest theory's usually the theory?
Yeah, Occam's razor.
Okay, yeah, Occam's razor. I think that's what it is, where it's the most
obvious.
Yeah, the most obvious
Yeah.
theory is the correct theory, because it makes total sense that you beat someone up and they come and retaliate and shoot you. And maybe they didn't even intend to kill him, since, it was a while before. Maybe they thought this will just be a warning, don't mess with us.
Yeah.
Because they did think he was going to live. He was in the hospital for a few days. So, yeah, as far as Biggie goes, I don't know, because I don't want to get sued. I don't know. But the Suge Knight kind of makes sense, with the whole LAPD not saying anything, and him being well, my best rapper's taken out. Let me make the East Coast best rapper taken out. Maybe it was Crips. I don't know. But there's our little speculation corner of who we think did it, because you guys love our opinions, right?
And let us know what you guys think, and definitely let us know if we missed anything. We tried to do some really good research on this, but obviously I'm sure there's way more information out there that we did not find. So if you guys know more, definitely let us know. We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is gonna have to be my cats. So, crazy cat lady over here, little Luna and Nova. So I have been fortunate enough where I can work from home, and my job did furlough people, but thankfully I was saved and I still have a job. I know a lot of people are in rough times. I'm very fortunate and grateful that I get to, stay home and be able to still work. But it's been nice to be around them more, because I didn't really get to see my cats too much before, and I think they're getting along a little bit better with me and Kevin here all the time, but it's just so fun to see them interacting and their little personalities, and they're hilarious. So it's just nice being around them. The circumstances suck, but it is nice that I get to hang out with my cats more.
Yeah, that's nice. Absolutely.
All right, Jaclyn, what's your perk of the week?
So for my perk of the week, Courtney, I'm gonna say Veronica Mars.
Yes!
So, guys, Courtney has loved this show the entire time that I've known her. I don't know why I've never watched it. I guess just never. I don't know how long it's been available on Hulu, but it's on Hulu now. But with this lovely quarantine, I've got all caught up on all the shows I was watching. So I'm like, okay, guys, I need a new show. And Courtney recommended Veronica Mars, so I started it yesterday afternoon, and I watched the first 5 episodes.
It's so good.
I mean, it's like anyone who knows me, like early 2000s was like my jam. Early 2000s teen drama with a murder, just even better. Yeah. Like right up my alley.
You'll have to text me your theories on who you think killed Lily.
Okay, I will.
So, but yeah. Kevin and I just finished watching it, because Kevin and I tried to do a thing where we go back and forth and we each get to pick a show the other has to watch. And so this one was mine, and he liked it. I don't think it was his favorite, but it was fun rewatching it.
Yeah, Andrew watched about 10 minutes of an episode yesterday before we went to go get coffee. Andrew and I just do this thing where we just don't watch TV together. So that works for us. But so we hope you guys are staying well and take care of yourselves.
Yeah, and definitely. So we also want to give a shout out to our Patreon subscribers, because you guys are the bomb.
Thank you guys so much. You are amazing. We are so grateful for you guys who subscribed like so quickly after we put the link out there. You guys are great.
Yeah, and your pins are coming. Your stickers are coming. COVID-19 has delayed a few things, but we're working on it. We actually just had our, Google monthly hangout with our, subscribers, and that was super fun. So if you want to be a part of that, go ahead and subscribe. And so here is a little shout out.
Yes, so we want to say thank you so much to Kevin E.
He's a stellar guy.
It's Courtney's fiance, guys.
That's my fiance.
But still, thank you, Kevin. We love you and appreciate you. And also Catherine O. and Emily K. So thank you guys so much for subscribing. We hope that you are enjoying your bonus episodes, because we do have a couple of bonus episodes out now, as well as getting our 2 parts a week early. Like Courtney said, we have some pins and some stickers, and depending on which tiers you guys pick, you can get a quarterly gift, and you can get a Q&A session and a monthly Google Hangout with us. So if you are interested in that, you can subscribe at patreon.com/caffeinatedcrimes. You can also email us at caffeinatedcrimespod@gmail.com, and you can find us on Instagram at caffeinatedcrimespod.
Yeah, and so we hope to hear from you, and we hope you're doing well, and go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime in quarantine or elsewhere.